The rats, mice, and bats stopped squeaking. Only the giant beetle removed its flew came on down towards the basement. Its job was done. As for Ghost, she was now a fearsome figure, and her white trail stretched the whole length of the battlements. The little Zebulon opened his eyes. At first he thought the frog had come down over the castle. Then he saw two great black holes glaring at him and the swirling trails of mist. A phantom, he was and fainted. The ghost looked anxiously at the wizard's fallen hat. The beetle has gone, but he thought of it was enough to make her scream again and go cloudy. Then she pulled herself together. She swerved round the mirroring the way her trails ripped over walls. As her fear led her, she began to regain her normal size, but she was no longer just a hazy outline. Thick as white as cotton wool, she danced up the tower steps. The ghost was filled with pride. No one had ever called her phantom before, and no one had rung the great bell in the living memory. How had she managed that? Altogether, it had been a haunting to remember. She hoped someone had seen her. Perhaps the owl had been watching. The ghost floated up to a bell, but her friend was not there. The owl was lying on the ground at the foot of the castle. Terrified by the ghost and deafened by the noise of the bell, the two birds had fallen senseless from a tower a few meters. He spread his wings just in time and made a bumpy landing. The owl was not so quickly. She had fallen away. Jason stumbled over to her. The owl lay quiet still. Then the two eyes fluttered. "And the owl's good for you," she hooted faintly. "Yes, ravens. Certainly. No, I think," said Jason. The owl opened her eyes very wide and stared hard at Jason. "And the crowds will know even more," he added. Then he said quickly, "Let's fly back to tower." The owl struggled to her feet. "Too bruised," she said. "We'll just have to talk, Jason." The wizard was recovering in his favorite chair when the two birds limped past him. He couldn't be sure, but he thought he heard them laughing. Under the Moon by Vivian French. Illustrated by Chris Fisher. Once upon a time, there was a little old woman and a little old man who lived together with a little old owl. They would have been very happy, but for one thing, the little old woman just could not sit still. Never ever did she sit down and stared at a cup of cocoa with a little old man. Dust, dust, dust. Polish, polish, polish. Shine, shine, shine. All day long she was busy. The little old man began to sigh and to grow lonely. White. While the 10 tall children were growing up in neat little house, he didn't have time to notice how the old woman never stopped working now. However, He liked to sit by a fire and dream, and he thought it would be a friendly thing if a little woman sat beside him. You could knit a little knitting, said the old man, or sew a little seam. But a little old woman said, No, 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 I must dust and sweep and clean. The little old man sighed a long sigh and went to put the kettle on. He sat down beside the fire with Nibble the dog and Plum the cat. And Nibble curled up at his feet and Plum curled up on his lap. But still the little old man felt lonely. The little old woman went up sweeping the yard with her broom. Even though the stars were beginning to twinkle the sky. One day, there was a knocking on the door. Who's there? Asked the little old woman, running to open the door with her duster in one hand and her mop in the other. It's me, said young Sally from a cottage down the road. My mum says you're the bestest cleaner in our village. And we've just got new babies that like us to peace. And all the children running here and there with smuts on the noses and dirt on the tosses. And our mom was wondering. The little old woman didn't want another moment. She picked up her broom and she ran through the door, and she fairly flew down the road to Sally's. Sally Cottage. All day she polished and swept off the scrub, and by the time the stars were twinkling, the cottage down the road was shiny and new pin, as fresh as a daisy, as polished as 1 minute chestnut falling in a tree. Well, 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 said the little old man, as she hurried around through the door. There's a good day's work you done. Would you like a little cocoa? The little old woman actually sat down. Thank you kindly, my dear, she said. So, just a sip or two. Then I must polish our own little house. And she sat quietly beside the little old man, for 5 minutes. This is fine and dandy, said the little old man. Smiling, Nibble laid his head on the little old woman's feet, and Plum purred happily, just as if should be a gentle summer evening, said the little old man. No, 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 said the little old woman. She drank the last drop of cocoa and jumped to her feet. It was very nice. But I must hurry, hurry, hurry. And she seized the duster and hurried up to the dresser full of china, polish and shine. The little old man sighed, but it was medium-sized sigh. 5 minutes is 5 minutes for more than nothing be said. Nibblum nodded his head. The next day brought another knocking on the door. Who's there? Said the little old woman, running to the door with a dustpan in one hand and a broom in one. In the other, it is I, said the parson from a church across the hill. I have heard that you are a most wonderful cleaner in the country, and my church is full of mice and moths in the mildew. The little old woman didn't waste another moment. She picked up her soap in the bucket, and she ran through the door, and she hurried and scurried to the church across hill. She swept, and she dusted, and she rubbed, and by the end of the church was glowing as 100 candles had been lit inside. Well, 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 said the little old man as she walked through the door. There another day worked her. Could you fancy a cup of cocoa? That you? Thank you kindly, said the little old woman, and she sat down on a bench by the fire with a flop, just a small cup, and then I must scrub our own backyard. She sat quietly with the old man, and with Nibble with the dog, and Plum the cat, for 10 long minutes. Then off she popped, and away went with Bottom with a broom in the yard. The little old man sighed a very little sigh. What do you think, Nibbler? Isn't 10 minutes 10 whole minutes more than nothing? Nibble nodded and Plum nodded, purred. The next day no one came into her house. The little old woman cleaned and rubbed and scrubbed the little house inside and out, and when the stars began to twinkle in a bluebell sky, she was still swishing her soap suds in her tub. Then 3 came in and knocked on the door. Such a timid, quiet little knock you could hardly hear it. The little old woman hurried to see who it was. Her hands wet and dripping. Who's there? She asked. Standing on the doorstep was a strange grey shadow of man. His hair was long silver, and his clothes were all tremble around him. I hear, he whispered in a voice as soft as bird's breath, that you are the very best cleaner in all up and down on the earth. Little old woman nodded briskly. She shook the water from her hands, and the drops flew through the air. How can I help you? She asked. It's a cobwebs, said a silvery grey person. I don't know what to do about them. The little old woman ran back into her house, picked up her broom and basket of dusters. Just tell me where they are, she said fiercely. I never met a cobweb yet that did whisk away when I got busy. The silver grey person waved his arms in the air, and the silver dust gathered about him. Up there, he whispered, 17 times as high as the moon. The little old woman looked up into the night sky. Sure enough, there high above the moon were long trails of cobweb lying across the sky. She hurried aside and shook the little old man from his dust in front of a rosy crackling fire. Come along, my dear, she said. I need your help. Nibbler and Plum ran out with the little old man, but when the Nibbler saw the stranger, he began to whine. He lowered his head and crawled back into her house, with his tail tucked under him. Plum was not afraid. She greeted the grey person as an old friend, purring and rubbing in and out of his legs. Whatever it is, asked the little old man. We need your help, said the little old woman. She shook the dusters out of the baskets and settled herself her room inside. Now, my dear, toss me up as high as ever you can. The little old man picked up the basket. He shut his eyes and counted to 3. Then, with a heave and a pitch of a toss, the little old woman up and into air. Up she flew, higher and higher, until the little old man only see her as a tiny speck against light of a moon. The silvery grey stranger bowed along and quiverly bow. I do thank you, he said in his soft thread of a voice, as he shook himself all over the sky, all over. Silvery sparkles flew in the air and settled on the little old man and on the ground around him. It made him sneeze once, twice, 3 times. When he had stopped sneezing, the stranger gone, flown back to his own moon. Looking up, the old man could see his pale face smiling down. The little old woman came back with the sunlight in the early morning. She slept a little in her rocking chair and then bustled around the house. It seemed to the little old man why she was not quick as usual. Perhaps she was tired. When evening came, the little old man put on a kettle and sat down in front of the fire. Nibble and Plum sat down with him, and so did the little old woman. "That's a fine night works," said the little old man, looking up in the clear and starlit sky. "Not a trace of cobweb can I see." The little old woman sniffled. "Indeed, I should hope not, my dear," she said. When has a cobweb ever been too much for me and my broom? I shall be up again next full moon, just to make sure. Would you like a little cup of cocoa?" the little old man asked. "Indeed I would, my dear," said the little old woman. "And if it's all the same to you, I'll just sit quietly. Here's evening its tiring works, sweeping all those cobwebs away." The little old man and the little old woman sat happily together. Nibble slept her curl up at their feet, and Plum settled himself on the little old woman's lap.